completer. There we go. So I will share screen now. So share. So have you all got the shared screen with the text beginning Eva Mavakor? Good, thank you. Eva Mavakor. This could equally have been said just evam or tata, meaning thus, but the evam evakor is the emphatic way, which we could translate as in exactly the same way, in just that same way. Evam evakor pikave appakate satta ye manusse supachajayanti atako eteva satta bahutara ye anyatra manussehi pachajayanti. So this follows on from the earlier paragraph in the text of the Anguttara, where the Buddha points out that there are numerous beings who dwell upon the face of the earth, the dry land, but more numerous are those beings who dwell in the oceans. And he goes on to say, equally, few are those beings who are reborn among humans, but more who are born otherwise than in a human birth. So
I have a question.
Yes, please, Todd.
So with apaka te sata, would it also be reasonable to translate it as there are few beings? I guess using uh, few are those beings really pulls in the te pronoun.
Yes. Sorry, so could we also translate as that there are few beings?
Right.
Um, yeah, I suppose you could. Yes, I think the answer is you could. However, one slight caution there is that we can express it in English with the same force and stylistic effect. Oddly enough, exactly the same way as it is expressed in the Pali. So normally in English, there are few beings who.
Hmm.
But we can, you can say te sata apa or te sata apaka ye would be the more normal way of saying it in Pali. But there's this slightly poetic way of expressing it, just as we can express it in a literary poetic kind of way in English. Few are they who, and we can do because in English we have to put in the verb are, which can be left out here in Pali. But then Pali and English both have exactly that same way of putting it. It slightly emphasizes
Yeah.
the fewness of them in Pali
Mhm.
as in English. So the answer is to your question, technically yes, but it would lose that kind of stylistic effect, which the English, in this case, can directly reflect from the
Mhm.
Pali.
And in some sense, that's helped by having the word for few at the beginning. It
That's
gives
right,
kind
yes.
of
Yeah,
literary, the position gives it a emphasis.
yeah. And you find the same kind of style used in the in the King James version of the Bible, so on. You put the adjective first, just to emphasize that that's the point you're making.
Mhm.
So, apakate sata ye, few are those beings who manusesu pachajayanti, manusesu here locative plural, meaning among humans. Um, pachajayanti It's from our root jan, to be born. Ajan is more like something like, it has essentially the same meaning, but to come to be born. Now, the prefix Pati, this is Pati Ajayanti, which by Santi becomes Pacha Jayanti. This is the Tia becomes Cha, Pacha Jayanti. The force of the Pati here, I've done a note on it in the explanatory glossary. The force of the Pati here, so I think we discussed this earlier when with you, Todd, that it's not just back. There's also a sense of earning back, getting back what you have earned by your kamma. So here it suggests not just reborn, but reborn because you've earned it. You've earned back. You've got back a rebirth, or you've deserved or you've merited a rebirth among humans. Atako, so atako would mean, and here in this respect, etevasata, so that's ete eva. That's ete, those, eva, and the emphatic. But it is those beings are more or more numerous, bahutara, ye, who, anyatra manusehi, pachajayanti. Those beings who are born otherwise than, or who earn rebirth otherwise than among men. So here we've got the ablative here, manusehi, and it has the same form here as the instrumental, but I interpret this as anyatra manusehi, so anyatra with an ablative meaning elsewhere than, otherwise than among. So bahu and bahula just means much, and this is a regular comparative, so bahutara, more. We have the adjective bahu and bahula both mean pretty much the same thing. We have the expression bahulika. So if you can hear something that sounds like gunshots outside, I don't know if it's coming through to you. Somebody seems to be having a firework party in the next garden to mine. Yeah. Bhutara, more numerous, ye anyatra, who are in another place. So anya, meaning other, and tra is that suffix in indicating place. You can have kutra, where, atra here, tatra there, anyatra elsewhere. This is one of those few cases, this tra ending, where Pali retains the consonant cluster of Sanskrit. It's a tra. Normally, if you had anyatra in Sanskrit, it would become anyatta. So anyatra in Sanskrit would normally, you would find it as anyatta in Pali. This is one of those cases, the tra, where the Pali just happens to have retained that consonant cluster. So it's getting a bit loud from me. In exactly that same way, amongst apakate sata, few are those beings, ye pachajayanti manusesu, who are reborn among humans, atako, and here, or in the same way, eteva sata, those beings bahutara, those beings are more, it is those beings in the greater number, who anyatra manusehi pachajayanti. gain rebirth otherwise than among humans. In the next,
James, before you go on, could you possibly just run through that again? Because I'm getting a bit lost in it.
sorry, I didn't catch your very last word. You're getting a
bit lost in it.
Oh,
So can you just run through that again?
right. So it starts off with the previous text that's not reprinted in Gair and Karanatillaka, the Buddha pointing out how the beings that exist in the oceans are more numerous than the beings that roam the dry land. He says, Evam Eva, in exactly that same way, Bhikkhave monks. Appakate Sata, few are those beings. Appaka, few, nominative plural to agree with Sata beings. Te Sata, those beings. Appakate Sata, few are those beings. Ye Manusesu Pachajayanti, who ye Pachajayanti gain rebirth, Manusesu as locative plural among humans.
Oh, in humans, okay.
And Atako, in that same way, in this regard, Eteva Sata, Eteva is Ete Eva. It is those beings, Eteva Sata Bahutara, are more numerous. Ye Anyatra, ye Pachajayanti, who gain rebirth, Anyatra Manusehi, otherwise than among humankind.
Thank you.
Is that clear?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Yeah.
Would you like to enhance the clarity in your mind by actually now reciting that in fluent Pali?
No.
You wouldn't? Oh. Who would? I know. Oh, yes, Shalaka, please.
एवमेव को भिक्खवे अपकाते सत्ता ये मनुष्येषु पच्चाजायन्ति अथ को एतेव सत्ता बहुतरा ये अन्यत्र मनुष्यैः पच्चाजायन्ति.
Wonderful, yes, that was perfect. Now, as so often happens, the remaining verses, there are many more verses than the original sutta, but these remaining verses repeat the same idea, the same overall sentence structure, but with different subjects. So the next one, Appakate satta ye majhimesu janapadesu pachajayanti atako eteva satta bahutara ye pachantimesu janapadesu pachajayanti. Janapada, jana just means people. As we know, it's from that same root, generation. In Greek, it is genos. In English, it's the same word that comes in as a genus, meaning a type of the genus and the species. But here, it means people generally. So, and pada is that word of multiple meanings, the polysemic word. It means here the place or the abode. For example, in the Appamadavaggo, the chapter on Appamada in the Dhammapada, it has Pamado, that's heedlessness, neglect, virtually the opposite of sati. Pamado Machuno Padam is the place, the abode of death. Machuno Padam. And that's the abode, the place. So Janapada means a people place, a place where there are people, an inhabited area. And here would be just a place where there are people. So the Manchima, well, we have it in the same word in the Majjhima Nikaya, which is literally the middle collection, the middle length sayings. Majjhima, cognate with medius, and from which we have in English medium and middle. It's the same word. So in the middle regions, the idea of being here seems to be the kind of an ancient view. It was made explicit among the Chinese that where we who are speaking we are the center of true civilization and humanity, as opposed to this poor benighted beings who are there in the more remote regions. Simon.
Yeah, can I ask about Janapadesu?
Yes.
I thought that didn't have pada in it. I thought that was desa, as in an indicated area, and then it just had, as in, over there, a direction, a compass point. Padesa is the same as Pradesh in the sense of a nominated area, a place, a region.
Yeah, okay, fine. Very ingenious, but I'm going to have to disallow it. But I have my very exact reasons for disallowing it. There is indeed the word Padesa, which in Sanskrit is Pradesha, which we have in modern India. For example, we've got Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. It means so the desha was originally desha meant a point of the compass, then came to mean a country, and a pradesha was a subdivision of a country. In fact, in modern India, the word used in modern Hindi, I'm sure you do the same in Marathi as well. Pradesh is a state. So you've got the whole of the country, but the individual states of India are called Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh literally just means the northern state. And Himachal Pradesh, for example, the Himalaya mountain state. However, where your interpretation falls down is because this is a locative plural. So the esu ending is not part of the word padesa, but it's a locative plural of pada. If it were padesa, it would be janapadesesu, the esesu. The esa is part of the original word, and the esu added as a locative plural to the end of the original word. But here we have did you say why the original word cannot be padesa? And if the original word were padesa, no way could it now be ending in an u. There is no u ending for the akaranta shabda, for the words ending in a short a. Do I detect any residual resistance to my point, Simon?
None whatsoever.
Okay, so right. Another thing is that if it had been Jana Pradesha, and instead in Sanskrit Jana Pradesheshu, you would probably have found the P doubled to reflect the Sanskrit pra. So we didn't need another indication because the ending of the word itself shows that it has to be from pada. stem pada locative plural padesu, but we would that clinches it. But an even further thing is that we would probably have found a doubled P if the original was Pradesha.
So the Janapada would just mean something like the race thing, the people's thing, the people's
The people's place.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
In fact, I've done I've done a note on it just below. Where are we? Where did I put it? Here we are. Where I've highlighted on shared screen now.
There's a typo there. You've got Japa Pada.
So I have. Thank you. Thank you. What would japa mean? There is the verb japati, meaning to recite, particularly so japati, japa, recitation. But no, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. I put it elsewhere. Okay, I think that was the only place. So few of those beings who, gain rebirth. Majjimesu Janapadesu. By the way, I was saying that the Chinese make it explicit is because since the most ancient recorded times, of course, Chinese written records do go back a very long time indeed, they call their own country the Zhongguo, which literally means the central country, the central kingdom, as if they are the center of the earth, and everyone else is a slightly lesser and on the outside. And I quite some time ago, I was talking to one Parisian who, without any sense of irony or embarrassment, just said to me, as if it were a fact, Paris est le centre du monde. Paris is the center of the world. And he said it as if he honestly believed it. Anyway, there it is. We all tend to think, well, I suppose it's normal. Each one of us is the center of our own little universe, aren't we? But trust the French actually to say it out loud to an Englishman.
In the States, the New Yorkers have that same reputation. So,
okay, right. So, it seems to be a human universal that you will compare yourself to others. So the New Yorkers have. I'm interested to hear that. I'm interested, but not totally surprised to hear that the New Yorkers are so. Which part of the States are you from, Todd?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay.
I mean, in Europe we have the Mediterranean, don't we?
The Mediterranean, the Middle Sea.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose that there is some kind of justification for that because most of the then civilized world, as was known in the West, you could see, okay, well, this is the sea, and we've got a civilized Greece, slightly civilized, well, highly civilized Rome, slightly civilized Greece, according to the Romans, the barbaric Africans. But they're all the sea is in the middle of them. So on that point, I think we could say there is some kind of objective justification for their use of that term. In fact, the Arabs also use they call the al-Bahr al-Abyad al-Mutawassit, literally the central White Sea. Why they call it white, I don't know, but the Arabs also refer to it as the Central Sea. But again, there is some geographical justification if that's the part of the region you're living in there. And in India, there was the idea that the India being the center of the world, and there are these outside oceans. The original Pali text that has not been reproduced in Karunatillaka is actually quite interesting. I'm just going to, so I hadn't got my iPad linked. Bear with me while I link my, here we are. Just going to link my iPad. There we are. So in the Pali, okay, we'll just finish this and I'll give you the bit that's been missed out. Eteva Sata Bahutara, same phrase we've just had. Those beings are more numerous who Pachajayanti gain their rebirth. Pachantimesu Janapadesu. Now I've explained Pachantima in my notes that anta means an end or the extremity. In fact, this word identical in Sanskrit and Pali, anta, cognate with our English word end. It's from the same Proto-Indo-European root. So antima means endmost, the antima endmost, and also the most remote in physical terms. So here, the prefix prati has the more physical meaning of up against, towards, so towards the end, the extremities. So pachantima means existing at the extremities, and therefore remote. So pachantimesu janapadesu, in the outlying, in the remote areas. The Pali actually goes on to say, I hadn't spotted it by the time I came to do this written version, otherwise I would include it. In fact, I only spotted it a couple of days ago. It's avinyataresu. Lakesu. Among the uncouth barbarians or unwitting or unknowing, unenlightened barbarians. So it's from we all have this, we all know the word vijnana, meaning, well, commonly translated as consciousness, but it actually more means the knowing that, the jnana is a knowledge. Vijnana means a kind of a split knowledge, knowing that you know. You can know what's happening to your body. You can know what's happening in your mind. You not only experience something, but we can all be witnesses of our experience. That is the vijnana, the split knowledge. But it's also meaning, just has a more generalized meaning of people who've got some intellect and some understanding. And this is a slightly unusual form of the adjective here. There's the vinyataram, vinyata, one who knows. Sorry. Vinyatara, locative plural, vinyataresu, among the conscious, sensible, milakesu. Milakesu is a word roughly meaning barbarian. Roughly. In fact, in Sanskrit, it is mlecha. and it's sometimes quite amusing. You can slightly tease the Hindus, tease the Brahmins, because mlecha in modern northern India it's pronounced just mlech. It is a rather disparaging term for anyone who is kind of essentially not a Hindu or not within the caste system, the kind of the barbaric outsiders. And it's almost like a disparaging racial term, actually, which is why it's interesting to, if you want to tease a Hindu slightly, you see, ask them what do you actually mean when you say mlech? And they don't quite like to say it to a mlech like me, you see. So it's a slightly disparaging racial term, and it's come into Pali's milakka. As best I recall, I mean, it may exist in other locations. I don't recall having seen this word used in any other of the things I've read. I haven't actually done a word search on it. So that is how it is in the original Pali. Avinyataresu milakkesu, among the benighted, the unknowing barbarians. And Christine, would you like to recite that line for us?
Let's see then. Eva meva ko away. Apakate sata ye marjimesu janapadesu pacha jayanti. Atako eteva sata bahutara ye pachanti mesu janapadesu pacha jayanti.
Right, that was pretty good, save that a couple of minor errors over vowel lengths. Remember, not esu, it's always esu. It's always one once more. So just say janapadesu chajayanti. Can you repeat, noting in particular long esu, and be careful about the doubled ch, chajayanti. Janapadesu pachajayanti.
Jayanti.
Okay, that was a lot better. Very, very good. Thank you, Christine. Now for the next line. Evameva publicare appakate satta ye punyavanto ajala anela muga patibala subhasita dubbhasitassa attamanyatum Attako eteva sata bahutara ye duppanya jala elamuga napatibala subhasita dubbhasitassa attam anyatum. So in exactly the same way amongst apakate sata, few are those beings, ye panyavanto, who are people who are wise, who are people of panya, ajara. It's the jala is jada, right? Yes, so jala is jada in Sanskrit. It becomes often the intervocalic d, intervocalic subdotted d becomes a subdotted l, a retroflex l in Pali. You notice the same phenomenon in Hindi actually, where you don't say bada but bada, where it becomes like a retroflex r sound. Um, so Jada then just means like dull, slow, stupid, who are wise, unstupid, Anelamuga, literally clear-throated, means not dumb. Because it seems that dumb, um, it has its literal meaning of unable to speak, but also equally in Pali, it had the pejorative, more colloquial meaning of being unintelligent, just as we use in modern English if somebody is dumb. Simon.
Yeah, I saw another version of this, which is that somewhere in the suttas, a jackal or a dog is described as anela muga. The possibility being that it might even mean drooling, as in so stupid you're drooling.
That's right, yes. There seems to be a slight, I mean, you've probably seen the entries in the PTS dictionary there. There seems to be some, not complete clarity about the exact etymology there. I even slightly get the impression that they've glossed over the difficulty in PTS. I would have gone into it further, but since it's just one fairly uncommon adjective there, I didn't actually bother. But now you've sparked my interest. Maybe I will have a further look at it. So it could also, as well as literally dumb, it could also mean drooling. But in both senses, the idea is unintelligent. So here, it's not just not stupid. Very often, where you get a word with a pejorative meaning, or indeed it can be with a good meaning as well, and if you just negate it, it doesn't mean that it does not have that quality. Sometimes it means it does not have that quality. Sometimes the negation means that it has exactly the opposite quality. For example, we often find it in the word in the kusala and akusala. So kusala having the meaning, well, skillful in the sense of skillful upon the Buddhist path. Where you have akusala, it just doesn't mean that it is without skill. It tends to mean that exactly the opposite. I mean, actively unskillful. So anelamuga would either mean, well, it means intelligent because either mean not not having an ailum, not having a blocked throat, meaning having a clear throat. So I'm tripping over myself now with this unclear etymology. But basically, it means anelimuga, intelligent, but with the not drooly throated, not drooly mouthed, or not dumb mouthed. Pati bala. So bala means strength. Pratibala, or pratibala would be in Sanskrit. Pratibala is counter strength. Counter strength meaning here possessing the countervailing strength. In other words, there is a task to be done. Do you have the necessary countervailing strength to overcome that task? Are you capable of doing something? Have you got what it takes? It takes something. Have you got that corresponding strength to give to the task? Here, pratibala, it can be both a noun, meaning the ability or the counter strength to do something. It can also be actually, it's quite an unusual form of a possessive adjective. It means possessing the counter strength. So it can be used as both. I think it's more commonly used as an adjective. So they are pratibala, they are counter strengthed, they have the counter strength, and therefore they have the ability. Agnatum, to know, and this is the tum ending of the infinitive. So they are patibala, followed by an infinitive, capable of knowing, discerning. The attam in Sanskrit would be the artham, the meaning of subhasita dubhasitassa, of the subhasita and of the dubhasita. In Sanskrit, that would be the subhashita and the durbhashita. So the subhasita, literally well spoken, means that which is, let's done a note on it here. Yeah, literally that which is well spoken, and dubhasita, Sanskrit durbhashita, that which is badly spoken or badly stated. Also in Sanskrit, actually, the word subhashita means like a well-spoken. It has the meaning of like a proverb, like a bon mot in French, something that is nicely stated that sums something up in a few words, like a proverb. Simon.
Yeah, I think that there's quite an important potential doctrinal point here as well. I was thinking about this a lot, that if dubhasita just mean, it could mean the Dhamma that is badly spoken by a less eloquent practitioner. So it's saying even if a monk is not particularly good at explaining something, one should try and understand the meaning. Or it could just mean that which is wrong, which is a Dhamma. And
you're right.
Even that's significant in the sense that it's not that agnatum, to know, is you don't just accept the right thing. It's that the Buddha is urging people to investigate for themselves the other teachings, even if they are rubbish and empty, and I don't know, the Jains or the other sects. So it's kind of quite Socratic that it's presented. You have to understand it, bottom it out, and then understand the good stuff that he's teaching.
I feel pretty convinced that you were right in that. So it's got the superficial meaning, that which is well expressed, that which is badly expressed, as you rightly say. It could be a correct doctrine, but badly expressed because the person's not good at articulating things. But it could, as you rightly say, mean that which is badly spoken, since it's just perverted or wrong or misunderstands the truth. And here then he would be extolling the virtues of those who are not only able to understand the truth badly expressed, but also to grasp this is a bad doctrine that is being explained. I understand it, I understand why it's bad, and in the sense that he would be able to argue against it. He would have a sufficient understanding of it, of that wrong doctrine, to be able to put the speaker right. Yeah, I think you've made an entirely right point there, Simon. And this agnatum, it's from our root jna, and this is with the prefix a, ajna, which then in Pali becomes anya, not to be confused with anya, meaning other. It's just now coincidentally looks the same in Sanskrit. It's ajna. So jna, meaning, as we all know, to know. But this is the verbal prefix a with a dynamic meaning, not just to know it, but to get it. It's like a dynamic movement of the mind. You've been trying to understand something and then you got it. It makes its aorist form, he has got it. Anyasi. And you remember those triumphant words of the Buddha? He was worried when he was explaining his doctrine whether anyone would get it because it's so nippunam, so abstruse. And so he, having discovered that his two teachers, main teachers, had recently died, he then sought out his 5 old mates with whom he had been, wandering, and he explained the doctrine to them. And Kondanya, it was Kondanya who then, having heard the Buddha preaching his first sermon, said, Yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabbang tang nirodha dhammang. Everything that has the nature to arise, all of that has the nature to cease. Thus indicating by saying that he got it. And then it's a rather moving story, actually. You can sense the Buddha's sense of triumph. Anyasi kondanyo, anyasi kondanyo. Kondanyo's got it. So that was the moment he realized, yes, there are those with but little dust in their eyes who will get it. So that is it's a wonderful illustration of the force of this verbal prefix there's often with this dynamic movement, the dynamic sense, not just nya, which is static knowing, but ajna, the movement of the mind, the aha moment, got it. Simon, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I said I spent a lot of time looking at this one, and there's kind of little minor epiphany caused by my initial misreading.
Oh.
When I was trying to work out what that meant, I looked at the Sutta Direct rather than your notes. And I was thinking it's actually to do with, where are we? I've got it down here, that atta, the meaning, the import, the kind of sense of what he was saying.
Yes.
Manyati, as in conceiving it correctly, which is obviously wrong. But that got me to thinking just one little word, that the whole doctrine kind of hinges on this difference between manyati, which is to do always about getting it wrong and to have the idea of self in, misconceiving, misconstruing, and the anyatum.
Right.
It's just like one little sound makes all the difference, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Had you, actually, it's interesting you should say that, had you been looking at a text where they hadn't separated the words? Had you?
Yes, that's the version I had, yeah.
Right. I wish editors of text wouldn't do that. If you're writing this in Devanagari script, you would have to write it as in the syllables atta, ma, nya, even though the and the a belong to different words. In the Devanagari script, it would all be written as one continuous row of letters. And my view is it's completely unnecessary to do that when you're transliterating into Roman script. You do no wrong by separating those words. The joining of the words is just a feature of the Devanagari script. And for example, when they're writing in the Thai script, when Pali is written in the Thai script, they separate the words. So yes, I mean, years ago I got into awful troubles thinking that looking up this word beginning with an M, when in fact the M is the ending of the previous word.
And presumably, I mean, it's even more kind of poignant in the sense that we are named, like mankind, we're named after the thing that we do wrong, manyati. we're the creatures, the beings that conceive rather than the creatures, the beings which know, which understand.
That's an interesting take on it. Firstly, before I move back to your point, Simon, I detected from Todd's body language that he'd had the same experience as I did, looking up for words beginning with an M, when in fact the M belonged to the previous one. Maybe you're being a bit too harsh, Simon, on this meaning of the word manyati. And it basically means thinking, using your mind, as I've said many times before. You've heard me that this root man is the same as the Latin mens, mental, and our root mind. Um, I'm not sure that it necessarily, I mean, very frequently it does refer to wrong use of mind, misconceiving. The word mana, often translated as pride, is from that same root. But I don't think it necessarily relates to misconceptions.
I think it nearly always does. I mean, when the Buddha begins to explain something, this kind of, tanking manyati bhikkhave, what do you think? And they always
Yeah.
get, they never have the right answer. And it'd be interesting, I mean, just to do a little search to find out whether manyati, whether when people are manionizing, they actually come up with the truth. I think it's always slightly negative. Well, that's how it struck me anyway.
So if I were to ask you, if I were to say something, if I were to utter something, and I were asking your opinion, Simon, in Pali, I said, Kim manyasi, I would not be saying to you or implying, what is your misconception? I would genuinely be asking you what your thoughts were about it. So I think if the Buddha says Kim manyasi, what do you think? Am I right or am I wrong? And the bhikkhu says, "Oh, you're absolutely right, Buddha." Maybe he's genuinely asking him for what he thinks. So I think you're possibly going a bit far in thinking the word necessarily assumes a kind of misconception or a wrong thinking.
Well, I will look for other examples, but I mean, it's got this sense of kind of conceiving or deeming something to be the case, doesn't it, really?
It does. It is certainly an activity of the mind, as indeed the very word itself imports. But although liable to human fallibility, I don't think it necessarily imports that it's wrong. It's just an activity of the mind that could be right on occasion.
I will research further.
Let's do some more. It's a very interesting point, Simon, you've raised there. But for example, from this root man, let me call up the iPad again. From our root man, we have and simply I should observe on a point of grammar that in Sanskrit, it is a class 4 verb, which adds a y after the root. So it's not manati, but manyati. Simply a class, that's in Sanskrit like that. And that's why it becomes manyati in Pali. Actually, manyate, I think it's atmanepada verb in Sanskrit. Manyate. We have the verbal noun mana, which typically means pride. But essentially it means, it's just the verbal noun of man, is the idea that you have about yourself. And if you've got big ideas about yourself, that is pride. And if you look at the word conceit, for example, now conceit is just, it's a conceptum in Latin, but concept and conceit arise, they were originally the same word in Latin. So the pride is your conceit was what you think about yourself. And it came to have, didn't originally have, but it came to have a pejorative meaning, and it certainly does in English. if somebody is conceited. It just means he's got big, overinflated concepts or thoughts about what he is. Similarly, mana, more often than not, is used with a pejorative meaning in Sanskrit and Pali, meaning pride, but it can be used in a perfectly useful and wholesome meaning, is one is encouraged in certain texts, certainly in the Bodhicharyavatara in Sanskrit, I think also in the Pali. Yes, in the Pali, I can't remember where they are, but I've seen it used, that you enhance your own mana, because often the idea is that you can't do something because you've persuaded yourself that you can't. And as soon as you start persuading yourself that you can, then you find, wow, I can do it after all. So you're simply holding yourself back by your own negative mana about yourself. So the encouragement is to flip to the positive side. Yes, I can do it. You create that positive mana, that positive concept about what you can do, and that enables you to do it. There's a wonderful word, and actually it's in the Bodhicharyavatara in Sanskrit, but it goes like this. It's so the manyana would mean just the mentating, the act of thinking. This is a vice that we are cautioned against. It's the Atma avamanyana, which by Sati becomes called Atma avamanyana. So manyana is just mentating, the act of thinking. The verbal prefix ava means off or down. In fact, it seems to be cognate with our English word off. So avamanyana is down thinking. So atma avamanyana, self-down thinking, thinking yourself down. In other words, falsely persuading yourself that you're unable to do it. And that is a mental vice, as it were, that Shantideva in the Bodhicharyavatara cautions us against, saying that we are on a path, we are on this struggle against the defilements, the struggle to arahantship ultimately, and that you block your own way by atmavamanyana, by thinking yourself, I can't be bothered, I'll never manage that. And he treats that as a vice. So I think that my position, and I'll leave Simon to do the research to try and knock me off that perch, that man on its own is morally neutral. It is the working of the mind, and like so many other things, it can be good or bad. Like the word chanda, for example, meaning a desire. You can have a skillful chanda, to enhance your practice, to follow sila. This is all skillful chanda, just as you can have skillful mana, skillful pride. So I think it of itself morally neutral, but dependent on context.
The only other bit on this is that I mean, there's that word which I think may be an original past participle, mutta, which the Buddha always uses as kind of supposed or imagined, which always gets a bad press.
Oh, so you mean the past participle mata?
There's another one, mutta, M-U-T-A.
Okay, yes, okay, yeah, there is. In fact, originally it was mata, but the a has mutated to an u in some forms. For example, sammutta, and you get the noun sammuti, that which is on-minded, in other words, agreed by everybody, like a general convention. Convention in the sense of it's a convention, we all think the same, we all agree that it is so. So sammutta, yeah, the sammutta is sometimes used in the sense of conventional reality. we know that I does not really exist, but on the other hand, we have to treat us in certain circumstances. We will have to act as if we did because it's the conventional reality, and it's we living among mostly unenlightened beings, so we have to adopt this sammuti, this convention. But yeah, in that sense, it is necessarily not the full truth. It's the opposite of the paramattha in Sanskrit, but paramartha, the further, the higher meaning. But I think that's just because the context in which the word is used, I still feel somewhat resistant to the notion that man is necessarily a false view. I think it can be right, like just a view. I mean, you can have micchaditti and sammaditthi, false view and right view. The word ditti of itself is kind of morally neutral. It can be right or wrong. More on this as we go along, Simon.
From a literary perspective, even if it does show up, most frequently that the bhikkhus get it wrong, there probably wouldn't be much of a lesson if they got it right all the time.
Oh, indeed
just-
so, and it's a well-known teaching device. Allow a student to say something that if you get the clever ones who are always right the whole time, there wouldn't be much teaching value. But the usefulness is getting it wrong and correcting what's wrong. So yeah, that's perfectly correct, Todd.
I see what you did there.
Sorry, what was that?
I see what you did there. I mean, allowing me to get it wrong, then you can.
accidentally fell into this maybe a skillful teaching device. I assure you that was a fluke, if such it was. So what we'll do then, we've just gone 8. So should we just have I'm happy with a 10-minute break if you are, and see you at 8:15 in 10 minutes time. Yeah. And again, on this occasion, I have remembered to pause the recording. Here we go. Pause. Good. Okay, so we'd reached this middle point of this line here. Pratibala subhasita dubhasitassa attamanyatum. And it goes on. Atako eteva satta bahutara ye duppanya jala elamuga napatibala subhasita dubhasitassa attamanyatum. This is Panyavanto. We would normally have expected to see this a long, because the noun on its own, wisdom, is panya, is a long a. Where you have the suffix vat, vant, possessed of something, you would normally, a preceding long a would normally remain as a long a. For example, in Sanskrit, there's a panya in Pali, prajna in Sanskrit. Possessing wisdom is prajnavant in Sanskrit. We would normally have expected to see panyavanto here, but it's one of those ones that just slightly anomalously shortens the there's no difference in meaning. Just means wise, possessed of wisdom. So Attako, in this respect, eteva sutta bahutara, those beings are fewer, ye duppanya. The prefix dush, which often you find that the last consonant of the duh is often doubled with the following words of duppanya. It mostly means bad or wrong, but sometimes it can just mean lacking. For example, bala, strength, Sanskrit durbala, Pali dubbala doesn't mean a bad strength. It just means lacking in strength. So it means weak. So dushpradnya or dushpradnya in Sanskrit, dupanya in Pali. Doesn't mean bad wisdom. It just means lacking in wisdom. So just do bear in mind that the prefix du in its various forms mostly means bad, but sometimes means lacking. So those beings are more who are lacking in wisdom and are slow or dull, kind of droopy-mouthed, elamuga, in the sense of being not very clever. N pratibala, not possessing the counter strength, not possessing the ability. Subhasita dubhasitassa attamanyatum. So the structure of that sentence is the same as the previous two. Before we move on, are there any queries or doubts about it? Would you like to give us a recitation of it, Todd?
Sure, I'll give it a go.
Yeah. Beginning with Eva Meva.
Okay. Eva meva ko bikare appaka te satta ye panyavanto ajla anelamuga patila patibala subasita dubasita attamatra attam anyatung atako eteva sata no. Atako eteva sata bahutara ye dupanya jala elamuga napati bala subasita dubasitasa atang atta mana. Wow, I'm having trouble today.
It is a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah. Attamanatung.
You pronounce that as if it had an M, so attamanyatum.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that was very good. In fact, you when you read out the first part of the sentence, you missed out the assa subhasita attam, but you did it correctly on the second time round. So that's fine. Very good. Thank you. So we can move on to the next one, hopefully without any doubts or queries on this. Evamev bhikkhave appakate satta ye aryena panya chakkhuna samannagata. Attako eteva satta bahutara ye avidyagata samulha. The eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that actually there was a typo there. There should be a long ah. There. It was my mistake to put it in as a short ah. Eteva satta bahutara ye avidyagata samulha. So as before, in exactly the same way, O monks, few are those beings who. Now, samanagata has the meaning of endowed with, and you're endowed with what the thing that you are endowed with is placed in the instrumental. So that's the panya chakku, the wisdom eye. I'll put a hyphen in there. This is a compound word. Panya chakkuna samanagata. So chakku in Sanskrit it is chakru, but becomes chakku in Pali, and it means the eye. Originally, it means the physical eye that you see with, but of course, it means the figurative seeing eye. So there's the eye of wisdom. So this is a noun ending in u, and so it makes its instrumental in na, una. So chakku, instrumental chakkuna. So panya chakkuna samanagata, endowed with the wisdom eye. You also see, for example, the phrase the dibba chakku, which in Sanskrit will be the divya chakru, which is the divine eye, from the eye that the devas have, this ability to see what is not visible to the ordinary human eye. So the dibba chakku, this is the panya chakku. Attako eteva sata bahutara, we've had before. On this point, in this respect, those beings are more ye avijagata samulaha. We could actually hyphenate this word. It's a compound. Gata is a well-known word meaning literally it means gone. So the word tathagata, several interpretations, but basically the simple linguistic interpretation is either thus gone, or it could equally mean thus come, actually. Just to give an explanation of that. So we have, sorry, iPad. Gum, to go. Gata, gone. Slightly irregular. We would have expected to see ganta, but the N has dropped and that's where it's become gata. With the prefix a, that reverses the motion. So gata, gone, agata, come. When we have the phrase tathagata, I don't think this has ever been fully resolved or fully agreed on. The tathagata could mean one of two things. Tathagata, literally thus gone, or it could be linguistically equally correctly tata agata. Oops. And by the normal rules of Sindhi, tata agata becomes tathagata. They merge into one long R. So if you see the word tathagata, it's impossible to tell from the shape of the word. The same applies in Sanskrit and Pali. Impossible to tell from the shape of the word whether it was from tata gata or tata agata. This is a case where through Sandhi there is an ambiguity there. Does it mean thus come or thus gone? But coming back to where we are, The literal meaning is gone. You sometimes find it as the second member of a compound, meaning in a state of. So avidya, ignorance, ignorance gone. In other words, in a state of ignorance, gone to a place of ignorance, just means in ignorance. Simon.
I think the in the state of is the reason that Richard Gombrich gives for rejecting the idea that it's one who is thus come and thus gone, or that in the context it's just the Buddha wishing to refer to himself as one who is thus, one who's like this. Like, don't try and label it, but it's one like me, as it were.
Right. You have preempted what I was actually going to come back round to, because if you look at the gata here, means gone to, meaning in a state of. So we can understand avidya gata, ignorance gone, mean gone into a state of ignorance, therefore is in a state of avidya. And Gombrich there, a very ingenious fellow Gombrich, has interpreted there the gata as possibly, and I don't think Gombrich actually comes down and say that it is how it is, but did he offer that as an alternative explanation?
I think he favours that one. Yeah.
Okay, right.
One who's like this.
Yes. So it could be the gata used in that same sense. So tathagata, gone into a state of, in a state of suchness. In other words, what I am is what I am. I am tata, I am thus. In other words, he's putting himself above words. What you see is what you get. No point in limiting it by words.
And just to put the cat among the pigeons here, I'm wondering if you got round to reading that article I sent you saying that it, or claiming that it was a corruption of Tirthankara.
Oh, Tirthankara.
Yeah.
Sent
you an article after the retreat.
Oh, yes, you did. Yes, thank you. Did I actually? I'm going to remind myself. I probably started reading it and then got distracted by life. You have reminded me. I will. The Tirthankara. I shall deal with that because it's an interesting word. It's from the root tri, meaning to cross.
If you are writing.
Sorry, thank you. Oops. Here we are. Tri meaning to cross, and it makes it one of the verbal nouns is tara, crossing. That's where we get the word avatara, one who crosses down, which then via the modern Northern Indian pronunciation comes into English as avatar. Todd, your hand is raised.
Well, Shalika also has a hand raised.
Okay, so
it was a little, yeah, it was for a little bit earlier, so we could come back to it for me.
Okay, fine. How about yourself, Shalika?
Yeah, so about Gombrich sir's explanation of Tathagata, I didn't get how did he divide that and what did he mean really?
Only Tirthankara.
No, Tathagata.
So Gombrich's interpretation. So Simon, could you? I think you've probably read it more recently than I have. Could you explain Richard Gombrich's interpretation?
I'll do my best. Traditionally, the word Tathagata has been seen as either thus come, as in Tata Agata, or thus gone, Tata Gata.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a combination of the two. So you can say almost as a pun, thus come.
Okay. Yeah, that's another point. Yeah, it could be kind of like a pun with both meanings intended at once. Yes.
But there
Mm.
is the sense also of gata, simply of this nature.
Mm.
So the Buddha, when referring to himself as Tathagata, is just simply saying, I am what I am, one like this, one of this nature. So he didn't refer to himself as Gautama. He just simply said, um, one thus.
Yeah. So gone to or in a state of thus. Yeah.
Nothing more can be said about it.
Yeah. Um, and this could well be one of those things where whenever we see that word, we just hold all of these meanings in our mind at the same time.
Well, this did loop back to what I was going to suggest, which
Yeah,
is
please, Tom.
it seems like um, the word become in English kind of has that state quality.
Yeah.
And
You
also,
were something, you have become another thing, move from one
yeah,
state to another. Yes.
and that might even work with I mean, yeah, like having become this, you know, and that kind of association might even work with avijja gata, having, it is become, it's become unwise, become ignorant. I mean, it does, it's not elegant in any way, but in terms of
Yeah.
concept, it seems to, for me, it seems to fit.
Yeah, it's that's yeah, I think that was what was kind of reflected when I said gone into a state of ignorance or become yeah. Um yeah, so I don't think there was any conflict between those two approaches, but yeah, I certainly agree with you, Todd. The interesting whether it's a corruption of Tirthankara. So we've got the root three, we've got the verbal noun tara. We also have um, another noun from it where the becomes an ir, tirta. What's happened with this ta? It's the ta verbal noun ending, which is exactly the same as in shamata, and in Pali samata is that same ta, which can be ata or ta verbal noun ending. From the root three, the root becomes tir this particular case. It's slightly irregular. So tirta means a crossing, and therefore, in particular, a crossing place. So the verbal noun originally just meant the act of crossing, and then came to mean a crossing place, a place where you could go across. Now, I think among the Jains, you might know this, Shalika, because you live in the land of the Jains, don't you? You have
Yes.
the Tirthankara, it would be Tirthakara, but this one is a declined compound. So Tirthankara is literally a crossing maker. Now, the significance of a crossing maker, somebody who makes a place where you can cross over, is that you often find in the imagery used in the religions of India, I mean, along the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Jains, you've got what you call it, you have the great floods, the great river to be crossed. You have in Hindi, you talk about ispar and uspar, this side and that side, meaning this side, human ignorance, and the other side is the enlightenment or heaven, what the other side of whatever you want to cross. So the Tirthankara literally means the crossing maker. It's the spiritual teacher or guide who gives you the ability, who creates the crossing for you, gives you a means of crossing over that flood. And I think this phrase is used, it's not really used among the Buddhists, but I believe it's used among the Jains.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, right. So the Tirthankar is somebody who makes the crossing for you, creates a place where you can cross. He shows you the way to go to the far side, to the far shore.
Yeah.
So is that phrase still used among the Jains now? I have a feeling it is.
Yes, it's a quite a common phrase for the Jains. In fact, you know how we have 28 Buddhas, likewise, they also have 23 or some number of Tirthankars.
Oh yes, in the Buddha Mangala, one of the gathas we use, isn't it? The Tirthankaram Buddham, isn't it? One of them is actually, or is it Tirthankara would be in Pali. Yeah, I'll have to remind myself from the text. I will read that article, Simon. My first reaction is that to get from Tirthankara to Tathagata is just a little bit fanciful. That would be much more of a phonetic corruption than we're used to seeing. I mean, Pali would be perfectly okay with the phrase Titankar, Titankara. Pali wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, not sure it exists in Pali, but it's perfectly capable of existing. But to make the corruption from that to Tathagata would be contrary to norms.
I mean, the word does exist in Pali but it's only ever used for the other sects, isn't it? It's for the Jains and for other people.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
and I think again, it's nothing to do with the language and how it's corrupted, but I think the author of that article is saying how whenever the Buddha refers to himself as the Tathagata, it's always something to do with the showing of the way across the flood.
Oh, okay.
Declares the law or shows how where to cross, how to cross.
Yes, and yeah, well, because as we just said, crossing the flood is well-known imagery for the spiritual path. I will read that article, Simon, and maybe I was a little bit too over self-righteous in my statement. I will happily climb down if the article. I will climb down with good grace if the article so persuades me.
James,
Yes, please, Shalika.
one question. How do you say the root TR? How do you pronounce it?
This one.
Yes.
Okay. There is some doubt as to how this vowel, because it's treated as a vowel in Sanskrit, how it was pronounced. Generally speaking, in modern India, you would hear, for example, the re, pronounced like a re, people, or sometimes a ru even. So we say mrita, meaning dead, or mrita or mrita, you'll sometimes hear. You'll hear Sanskrit, and we write it in English as Sanskrit, but the RI is in fact treated as a vowel in Sanskrit, just written with two letters, because it's a r with an e, a re. However, there is an alternative theory that it might have been pronounced just as an sound. Would the word in ancient times, was it Sanskrit or Sanskrit? We don't actually know. It was one or the other. Now this vowel r or can also be lengthened, and that's why I've written it here with this with the macron over the top. Was that pronounced in ancient times as a tr with a long sound, or tree with a long e sound? Tree. We don't actually know, but from the various, for example, chants that we can hear on the internet when the Brahmins chanting Vedic, they all seem to pronounce it as a ri or a ri sound, ri short, ri long. Okay, well, I just accept that that's how it's done now, by among the Vedic chanting Brahmins, but we still remain in a state of some ignorance of how it was pronounced in ancient times. We have to remain content with our ignorance. We simply don't know. We know there was a kind of r or r sound there. That is clear. Just was it or ri? I couldn't say that either is wrong, and I can't proclaim that one is right to the exclusion of the other. It's perfectly possible that in different parts of India, even as now, you get slightly different pronunciations of what is the same sound. Alas, I don't think we will ever know. But with Sanskrit pronunciation, there aren't too many things like that. It's normally all fairly clear.
Thank you.
So tr or tri, we can't say. They might both be right. Certainly, at least one of them is right. We can just have to leave it like that. For example, we find in the word for father, the root form is, sorry, the stem form is pitri. In its nominative singular form, it is pita, father. In the genitive plural of the fathers, it's written in Romanization like this. Now again, one speaker might prefer to say pitrinam, another might prefer to say piternam. I kind of tend to the view, but I can't put it above mere personal favor and preference. It's probably an sound, but I claim no authority for saying that. Nothing beyond pure personal preference. So pitrinam, piternam, one or the other makes no difference to the meaning, of course. As I say, it could have been pronounced in different parts of India. Just in southeastern England, we say world. And can I hear an authentic, please, Duncan, can you give us an authentic Scottish pronunciation of the word that we would pronounce world in southern England?
World.
World. So nobody's going to dare say to any Scotsman that's wrong. It's as valid as world. These are alternative ways of expressing it. And since we have that in modern times, even in the relatively short distance from the southeast to Scotland, so over much greater distances in India, you could equally have got those differences of pronunciation. Inevitably, you would have had it just rises in the normal course of human development. So, where we were. So, avijagata. Okay, so we've been, so ignorance gone, become ignorant, gone into a state of ignorance. We have a slightly similar thing in English, and there are a few words, woe, a state of misery. You can talk about woe begone. for the woe-begone expression. It's the same kind of their ignorance begone, kind of mired in ignorance, gone into ignorance. And samulha. I'll just explain this samulha. It's our root mu, meaning yes, to be bewildered or confused, or deluded. It's by regular construction, the verbal noun is moha, and that is our lobha, dosa, moha, our Pali trio. So moha, identical this word in Sanskrit Pali, that's the one that's normally translated as delusion. But it's yes, it does have that meaning. It's also the state of mental confusion, bewilderment, not really understanding things as they are. It makes its past participle. Note this: the root mu. Now, as we know, normally you make a past participle by adding ta to the root. So this would give us muhta, save that that form isn't allowed by the phonetics of Sanskrit. What happens is, where you get a h plus a t by internal sandhi in Pali, in Sanskrit, sorry, it becomes a d. And again, by a further slight irregularity, it tends to lengthen the previous vowel. So muhta becomes mudha, and then the lengthening of the vowel mudha. So mudha is the past participial form, therefore bewildered, deluded. You're in that state of moha. And this is then with the prefix sam, suggesting like the completion or totality, in a state of complete bewilderment, as it were. So these people are samulha. And again, as before, the da, written as a subdotted D and H in Sanskrit, between vowels, as usual, becomes a subdotted L in Pali. Now, it's a retroflex L sound. In a retroflex L, I've written it in Devanagari there, it exists in the Vedas, but not in regular Sanskrit. So the root id, da with a d, the very opening words of the Rig Veda, Agnimir becomes a l, Agnimir. Do I remember correctly, Shalaka, that in Marathi you do have that retroflex l sound, which you write in the way that I've written it here?
Yes, we have this. Kamal, like Kamal is called Kamal in Marathi.
Kamal, okay. So that's this r sound, this like with the like you have the da 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 na na. Also in Marathi, you have the l sound.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So we now have a live speaker among us who has this quite rare retroflex L sound in her native tongue. And it's exactly that same sound that is represented by this subdotted L in Pali, as I say, exists in Vedic Sanskrit, or sorry, in Vedic, but not in classical Sanskrit, just reverts to a d. Becomes the Vedic retroflex l survives in Pali, and I'm happy to see that it survives even in Shalaka's native tongue and modern spoken Marathi. So just basically to translate that into Sanskrit, just replace the subdotted L by the subdotted D. There we are, will be samudha. in Sanskrit. So, is there anybody who has not yet recited who would like the opportunity to recite this? Does Krista feel inclined to recite this? Okay. Okay, then. So since we have our wonderful retroflex R in there, can I ask you, Shalika, to recite it?
Yes, sure, happily.
Thank you.
एवमेव को भिक्खवे अपकाते सत्ता ये अरियेन पन्या चक्षुना समन्नागता अथको एतेव सत्ता बहुतरा ये अविद्या गता सम्मूढ़ा.
Okay, wonderful. I was just say Samurha again.
Sammudha.
Okay, very good. And remember, note that this this retroflex L sound can also be aspirated as here. Just the d can be aspirated. L can be aspirated as well. So, I suppose we've got to do a little bit of grammar, haven't we? When I don't spot any enormous enthusiasm, but we can spend a few minutes doing a little bit of grammar.
Do you remember what I said before? It's Duncan James about
Duncan.
It's important we do it now because it's much less painful doing it together than doing it on our own.
You did mention that before, and I did well take that on board, Duncan. Also, I'm aware that I have slipped behind somewhat in my preparation of the YouTube videos. I'm catching up. In fact, in the last few days, I caught up a fair bit on the work in the Sanskrit, the Bhagavad Gita and the Bodhicharyavatara. I'd slipped behind on. I will also do the same for the Pali. I think possibly don't want to be judgmental about it, but you all know what I mean. I think the most potentially boring part of grammar, particularly going through it like this, is when we just have to go through pages of tables, which we have done. We've got over the hump of that. We did the tables on 18, 19, 20, 21. So we've been through that. We may congratulate ourselves on having got through that and enjoy the yoga kema, wonderful expression, the kema meaning rest, and yoga in this sense meaning exertion. So the yoga kema is the ease after the exertion. So the last bit of table we've left is now it starts at the very bottom of page 21 and it's the top of page 22. There's nothing much to be said about this. It's the just the word katama, which means which or what, as an in interrogative. And you'll recall that we was it that I think in the first reading there's this tihi bhikkave angehi samanagato, possessed of three characteristics or qualities. And then you can say katamehi tihi, by what three, meaning what are these three that you're talking about? I can't remember that's in the text or whether I've made it up, but anyway, there are these three qualities. And if you want to say what three, you say katamani tini, what three, meaning what are these three qualities that you're talking about? And
they give it in the text as katamehi.
Okay, katamehi tihi. So he's tihi, and thank you for that, Todd. tihi, angehi, samanagato. Samanagato, endowed with, possessed of three qualities. So katamehi tihi, meaning what three? That the question follows on using the same case as the positive statement, meaning by what three, accompanied by what three, that accounts for the instrumental plural, katamehi tihi, by what three. There's only one. So the grammar, the declension of it says etc. at the bottom of that table. Just means it follows that the same as the other as the rest of the pronominal declension. There was a subtle distinction in Sanskrit. You have two words, katara and katama, with a ra or a ma at the end. And katara specifically meant which, but which out of two, whereas katama means which out of three or more. So that is a distinction that is observed in Sanskrit. Katama, which out of two, katama, which out of three or more. In Pali, the distinction is not observed, so katama, you can even use katama, even if you're asking about which out of two alternatives do you mean? That would be a mistake to do that in Sanskrit, but it's fine in Pali. We'll now look at the infinitive in tum. Those of you who've done Latin will remember what's known as the supine form in Latin. Amo, amare, amavi, amatum. It's that same tum. And do I detect a glimmer of recognition there, Krista, did you do Latin? Yes. There are a few of us here, and you did too, Christine, did you? Yeah, just a few of us who are old enough to remember having done Latin at school. It's very likely to be that same tum. What we can say about it is that, okay, it's correct enough and it tells most of the story that we need to know to say tum, see tum at the end of a verb, that's the equivalent of an infinitive. I want to go, gantum ichami. And in many cases, it's used in exactly the same way as it might be in English. So this we'll call up iPad. It is helpful to know that this tum, which is identical in Sanskrit, by the way, but here it is helpful to go back to Vedic, because in Vedic, you had an ending tu, a noun ending tu, which made verbal nouns. So if we take gam, and of course the m becomes an n before the following t, so gam tu, it makes a declinable noun. So gam tu as a masculine nominative is the act of going. Gam tu. So if you said gantum ichami, that would be treated in Vedic grammar as ichami, I want, and it takes followed by a noun in the accusative, gantum. So there was I want the act of going, which in English you say I want to go. Now, in Sanskrit, this tu ending for a verbal noun has disappeared, but the accusative form, the Vedic accusative form tum, survives now almost like a fixed expression. In classical Sanskrit, would hardly even be regarded as an accusative form of the noun anymore. It's just okay. That's the infinitive. However, bear in mind that it makes a dative. we're looking at a Vedic dative here of nouns in tu. I mentioned this, it is relevant, which is tave. So tave is a form that is used in Vedic, is retained in Pali, but has dropped out of use in classical Sanskrit. And that's a purposive infinitive, for the purpose of doing something. I can't remember where it is, but I'll look it up. But in the Dhammapada, you find that form used for the ha, to abandon, often with a ha, which from Sanskrit, praha, but for the purpose of abandon, it was not pahatum, but pahatave, dative form, for the purpose of abandoning. It comes in a verse something like you know, following virtue for the purpose of abandoning the wrong way. It's some that kind of thing. So that's more of a purposive dative. I'll see if I can. I'm sure I'll be able to find where it appears in the. Just make a note to find, and I'll raise it at the next class. That tave. So looking at what Ger and Karunatilaka say about the infinitive. Okay, the easy bit is that it all ends in dum, or occasionally tave. Did I see you picking, Todd, detailed tomes of detailed grammar off your shelves there? Which one have you got there? It had a slightly obelisk look about it to me, was it? It was indeed obelisk. I saw you picking off the shelves, right? I'll come back to you, Simon. Do you happen to know, Tor? I know there was a third volume due out. Do you know anything about when it's likely to be out? No. So I remember reading is due to be 3 volumes, of which 2 are now published, and that Oberlies is a German scholar. Sometimes slightly comes through the way he writes English as well, but it's all very very solid stuff. But he's really just put everything imaginable there. It's all in there. I wish he'd be able to. I wish they'd kind of laid out the pages in a far easier style. It's just all shoved in one solid block. It would be easier if there were more kind of indents and headings in bold and that kind of thing. So it's a bit of hard work to find what you want sometimes. But once you get there, it's usually worth it. Simon, come in.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that to ending from the Vedic. When we have words that end in karma, as in desirous of doing.
Indeed, yes. I'm glad you. I will. Yes, I should have mentioned that. Thank you for reminding me.
So, the ones I've seen are gantu karma.
Yes.
Going. There's chavetu karma, desirous of making fall away.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Upadetu karma, desirous of making arise.
Yeah. Yes.
Something like ujjaletu karma, desirous of making blaze up, when lighting a fire. Now, is that just that you drop the M? So we're talking about the infinitive to make do something. And also, does it come up with anything other than karma, desirous? Or is that the only form in which we find it?
Okay. I'll answer the second part of the question first. That's the only case where I recall having seen this ending, this infinitive, but in tu, used as the non-final element of a compound. In other words, where it's where it's followed by kama, meaning desire. So, your gantu kama this is now a bahuvrihi or possessive adjective, having the desire to go. I have seen it expressed, I forget which grammar it was now, that, oh yes, this is a form. I'll just call up the iPad to show what they mean. So we have gantum, to go. Gantu kama, so I say possessive adjective, desirous of going, having the desire to go. I know I've seen it expressed. I forget where it was now. Probably in a grammar written explicitly for Pali. That were just said without a real explanation. That you can make compound adjective, infinitive gantum, kama, desire, as a compound having the desire to, and in that compound the M of the infinitive is dropped, gantu kama. However, I deprecate that explanation because we have a perfect explanation if we go back to Vedic. So we have the noun, the just ordinary regular and gantu, and in the masculine form, it's a masculine noun, gantuhu. But we now make a compound of it, so we take the stem form, gantu, and just like any other compound, take the stem form, gantu, add kama, so we get gantu kama. So we don't even have to think about the dropping of an M. We only have to think about the dropping of an M if we forget its Vedic past and just accept it as a crystallized form. The infinitive ends in tum, and you drop the M in certain circumstances, drop the M in this circumstance. But that's, there's no harm in going back to the Vedic and say, well, look, it's a perfectly regular formation in Vedic if you simply understand that it was just a noun, gantu, the act of going. And that also, going back to the Vedic, helps us understand this tave form, for the purpose of. It's the dative of purpose. Pahatave, for the purpose. Pahatum would be the normal way of just to abandon, but pahatave, for the purpose of abandoning. And this pahatum in Sanskrit and Pali with the tum is also used as a dative of purpose. But as I say, with these survivals in Pali, but not in classical Sanskrit, of the Vedic dative, pahatave, which just makes it more explicit as a dative of purpose. Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, since we've been going back to Vedic a fair amount this class, I just kind of a clarifying question. Is it the case that classical Sanskrit was forming about the time of Pali, or maybe slightly before? Or is there a large difference in time between the formation of classical Sanskrit and Pali?
Okay, okay, I have to say, what do you mean by Pali here?
Well, okay, good point.
Okay, but it's a perfectly valid question. The answer to your question was about if we take Pali as being a language. We've got a snapshot. There was a developing language. We had Vedic as it was spoken 2,000 years BC in India. We got the Rig Veda, the earliest record, dates back to around 1800 BC, which is 1,300 years before the Buddha. Now, the Prakrits, the natural languages, the word Prakrita means natural. The Prakrits, So okay, I've started bad. Okay, you've got a certain language that was spoken around 2000 BC in the Ganges Valley. And out of that language, we had the priestly hymns of the Veda being composed. No doubt, maybe in a rather gnomic, refined form. And we had the ordinary language, the ordinary spoken language of the time in the Ganges Valley, that around 2000 BC was probably the same language as early Vedic. Now, the Vedic hymns got composed, and they took upon themselves certain sanctity as time went on, and they got preserved, in fact, very carefully preserved, beautifully preserved right into modern times, preserved by the Brahmins. The ordinary natural languages, the prakritas, literally prakrita means natural, just developed in the ordinary course. So Pali and the Ardhamagadi and the language that the Jain scriptures are written in, which is very close to Pali, are all just, as it were, colloquial developments of that ancient language. By the time we get to the speech as it was at the time of the Buddha, we don't have a record of all the old Prakrits, but we have quite a few. We've got we've got the Pali scriptures, we've got the Jain scriptures, very good records. For example, in the theatrical plays of Kalidasa, the great Sanskrit playwright, we've got the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas are speaking in pure Sanskrit, whereas the servant class are speaking in Prakrits. And it's actually there, written, they actually pronounced it, enunciated in Prakrit, the natural languages on stage. Now, back to Todd's question, the mighty grammarian Panini, it was he didn't create classical Sanskrit, he formulated the rules, a bit like an Académie Française, this is the correct way of saying it. By that time, the language had actually moved on quite a bit from Vedic. There are quite a lot of expressions in Vedic that Panini would have said, no, that's not right. He wasn't actually saying Vedic is wrong. He's saying this now is good, refined Sanskrit. In fact, the word Sanskrit means refined, put together, as opposed to Prakrit, Sanskrit, the opposite meanings. Sanskrit, put together, refined, Prakrit, natural, as it comes. And Panini, we don't know his dates exactly, but the best dates are that he was about the same time as the Buddha. So you've got Vedic, that's been preserved. Then you have a form of language that was the refined language spoken by the Brahmin classes, like Monia Williams, was it MacDonnell, described it as like a priestly dialect. And it was that form of the language that Panini laid down the rules for. But so that it's likely that it was about the same time as the Buddha, just coincidentally, that those two things happened, that we got the Buddha speaking and the record of what he said preserved in what is now identifiably Pali, and we got Panini doing his grammar of what we now recognize as classical Sanskrit, which has developed on from Vedic Sanskrit. You see a somewhat similar phenomenon in Greek, that you've got what we might call the classical Greek, the Greek of Plato and the classical Athenian playwrights, Plato, Socrates, the great Greek classics that were beautifully around the same time as the Buddha. But equally, you get the much older Odyssey, for example, written in an older form of Greek, with numerous different grammatical forms that would have been regarded as not good Athenian speech 500 BC, but were preserved in the ancient poetry. So they hallowed and preserved as the ancient poetry, but not part of refined Athenian speech. We have exactly the same phenomenon in Sanskrit. You've got the hallowed ancient Vedic hymns, but they had many of the grammatical features of that had dropped out of use in refined
Be-
speech by the time of Panini. So Vedic to Panini is much like Homeric Greek to classical Greek.
Okay.
And there's, you just read that. For example, in a verb with a prefix, let's say Nagarang agachati. He comes to the town. Nagaram agachati. In Vedic, you're allowed to separate the prefix from the verb. You can say nagaram gachati. You can do that in Vedic, but it would be regarded as just wrong in classical Sanskrit. That's just one example. And you've got various noun and verb endings that you find in Vedic. A far more complex system of noun and verb endings in Vedic that have become simplified to a certain extent in classical Sanskrit. I hope this adequately deals with your query, Todd.
Yes,
Good.
thank you. And I've succeeded in holding us late.
You know, I enjoy it so much. I always run on over time. So anyway, here we are now. We've come to the end of our time. So was that a question or a Pali practice? Oh,
Sorry, yeah, just something I've sent through. There's a nice little app that somebody sent me, which I've put on the notes. Go on to Google Play or the Apple App Store.
Mm.
It's just called Pali Practice.
Ooh.
It's simple, it's quite foolproof, and all it does, it tests you on declension of nouns and conjugation of verbs. So you can have fun with naro, nara, narang, nare, narena, narehi, etc., etc. It's good fun. And it's got a little icon of a vattaka, which is a quail.
A quail? What is the significance of the quail?
Because, well, the quail gets a really good press in Pali Buddhism, because the quail is the creature that you mustn't hold too tightly.
Yes, of course. Yeah, the idea of with your say meditation practice, not too tight, not too slack, like the quail. Yes, and hold it loose, it'll fly away. Hold it too tight, and you'll kill it.
Also, the quail is the little creature that lives in its own field, and when the hawk attacks it, because it lives in its own field, it kills the hawk. Because so not wandering off away from its field, it stays safe. It doesn't roam where it shouldn't do. And even better, when a man is walking along a country road, quails burst up on either side of him, and he's full of terror and shock. But he doesn't need to be, because they're harmless little creatures. And they're called vattaka because they twirl around.
Oh, it would be vattaka then in Sanskrit, vattaka in Pali. So
it's a fun little app anyway, and I recommend it for
Okay. I've somehow I don't know if I'm pressing a wrong button, but if you could send it to me separately by email, Simon, that will help me, and I can check it out.
I will do. Yeah, you can send it to other people that are not here. Do other people have it on notes? Have you got it? Pali Practice.
Okay, fine. So if you send that to me, then I'll check it out and then attach it to the group email.
Will do.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. So shall we chant the blessing and then say goodbye? So let me just stop share. Here we are. Good. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata Sabbasanghaну bhavena sadasuti bhavantu te.
Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, wonderful. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon. See you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.